All right, well, hello class. This is Mr. Richard. Just made a little video for you folks to introduce you to our friend, the parabola. So yeah, just wanted to talk to you a little bit about this. Basically, what it is a graph of a quadratic function. You can see the bottom here, the paper you've got in front of you says y equals x squared minus 4x minus 2. So that would be a quadratic equation. Normally we'd have it equal to 0 here. But right now it's equal to y, and what happens when we graph that, it creates this kind of U shape, which we call a parabola. So I just want to take a few minutes to talk about some of the terminology, introduce you to some of the characteristics, and your task while you're watching this video is to look down here at these different words and try to jot down some notes and some definitions of each of these characteristics of the parabola. Okay, so I'm just going to flip over to, flip over to this screen here, and you can see there's a graph right there of a parabola, and there's a number of things to it. The most obvious thing to me is the vertex. It's basically this minimum point down here. So the vertex is the minimum point for a parabola like this one that's opening upward. But we can have a parabola opening downward. If I change some of these parameters, now the vertex is actually the maximum point. So basically the definition of the vertex is that it's just like the tip of the parabola. It's either the minimum point or the maximum point, depending on which way the parabola goes. Okay, another important characteristic of the parabola is what we call the axis of symmetry. And I'm going to click this button down here, and it shows it to us immediately. So it's this brown line you see right here. What it is, just imagine that like a mirror. And the parabola is symmetrical across that mirror, right? So the left side of the parabola could be reflected over this mirror, and it would make the right side. And so quite often you'll be asked, what is the equation of the axis of symmetry? And so in this case it would be x equals 2, because that's the equation of this vertical line. Now a different parabola would have a different axis of symmetry. So what if it was over here somewhere? Okay, in this case, the axis of symmetry is x equals negative 2.5. So that's the point where it crosses the x-axis. Okay, what about the domain? Well, any parabola has this exact same domain, so that's like the easy one in this kind of thing. The domain is just all real numbers. Okay, the parabola gets wider and wider, so every single x value has exactly one y value. The range, however, is a bit different. So the range really depends on where that vertex is. In this case, we've got a parabola opening down, so the range would just be all the real numbers where y is less than basically the y coordinate of this point right here. It's hard to see exactly in this one, but if I move it up or down, then the range will change. Let's go back to the one you guys have a picture of. What was it? I think it was x squared minus 4x. And what was it? I think minus 2? Yeah. So for this one, definitely the range would be all the real numbers such that y is greater than or equal to negative 6. Okay, so that's the range. Y-intercept, if I click this button here, you can see all these kind of key points. So the blue dot there represents the vertex. This green dot, of course, is the y-intercept, is the point where the parabola crosses the y-axis. And by the way, we'll get to this later, but did you notice that this number here is negative 2 and the y-intercept is at negative 2? Okay, no coincidence there. And then, of course, the x-intercepts are these orange dots here, where the parabola crosses the x-axis. Now, those guys are important, and we're going to spend a lot more time talking about the x-intercepts. But for the sake of this video, just let me say that basically x-intercepts is the same thing as the roots of an equation, the roots of a quadratic equation, and you could call it the same thing as the zeros of the function. So those are kind of three different ways of saying the exact same thing. X-intercepts, roots, and zeros. They all basically just mean the x-coordinates of these points where the parabola crosses the x-axis. Okay, I think that's enough for this video. I'll give you a minute to just kind of write on your paper there, make some notes, write down some definitions, and then when you're ready, the substitute teacher, can you please play the next video?